Right now, hidden underneath the skin on your fingertips, there is a switch wired directly to your brain, and it flips on almost every single time your hands get wet. This has nothing to do with your skin soaking up water like a sponge. It is not passive, and it is not simple physics. It is your nervous system actively rewiring the surface of your hands in real time, and the pattern it creates is so specific, so consistent, that doctors actually use it as a diagnostic test to check whether someone's nerves are damaged. For most of the 20th century, everyone assumed that wrinkly fingers in the bathtub were just a matter of skin-absorbing water. The outer layer of your skin, the theory went, would soak up moisture, swell up, and since it is anchored to the tissue underneath at fixed points, it had nowhere to expand except upward and outward, buckling into ridges and grooves. It sounded reasonable. It matched what you could see with your own eyes, and it turned out to be wrong. The clue that something else was going on came from an unexpected place: hospitals. Doctors treating patients with certain kinds of nerve damage noticed something strange. When those patients soaked their hands in water, their fingers stayed completely smooth. No wrinkles at all. If wrinkling were simply a matter of water swelling dead skin cells, nerve damage should not matter, because the outer layer of skin you can see and touch is already dead tissue with no nerves running through it. And yet, without a working nervous system underneath, the wrinkling simply did not happen. That single observation flipped the science upside down. Researchers went back and figured out what was really going on, and it turns out your fingers wrinkle because of your sympathetic nervous system, the very same system responsible for your fight-or-flight response, your heart rate, and how much you sweat. When your skin senses sustained moisture, nerve signals travel to the tiny blood vessels just beneath your fingertips and order them to constrict, to narrow. As those blood vessels shrink, the volume of tissue underneath the skin decreases slightly, and the skin above, which is not swelling at all, gets pulled inward and puckers into wrinkles. It is not the skin ballooning outward from water absorption. It is the tissue underneath being actively pulled inward by your own nervous system. This explains something that always feels a little strange once you notice it. The wrinkling does not happen instantly. Dunk your hand in a sink and check every 30 seconds, and you will find it usually takes somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes before the first wrinkles show up. If this were a simple case of skin soaking up liquid, you would expect it to start almost immediately and scale smoothly with time, the way a paper towel darkens the moment it touches a puddle. Instead, there is a delay because your body is running something closer to a decision-making process first. Your nervous system has to detect sustained wetness, distinguish it from a light splash you can ignore, and then trigger a controlled, active constriction response in the blood vessels. That kind of delay is the signature of a biological system making a choice, not a material simply getting saturated. Now here is where it gets even more interesting, because the wrinkling is not random. Look closely at wrinkled fingertips, and you will notice the grooves form a distinctive branching pattern. Something closer to the pattern of a river delta or the veins of a leaf than to a random crumple. That is because the pattern follows the layout of the blood vessels and nerve pathways under your skin, which are laid down early in development and stay essentially fixed for the rest of your life. Scientists studying this have found that if you dry off, let your fingers return to normal, and then soak them again sometime later, the wrinkles that form tend to reappear in nearly the same configuration. It behaves almost like a second, temporary fingerprint, generated by your nervous system's fixed wiring, rather than by the ridges baked into the surface of your skin. So why would your body evolve something this elaborate just for wet hands? This is where researchers looked closely at the shape of the wrinkles and noticed they resemble something engineers would not invent until millions of years later. Rain treads on a tire. The channels in a tire tread are designed to funnel water away from the point of contact so that rubber can grip the road instead of gliding on a thin film of liquid. The grooves on your wrinkled fingertips do something remarkably similar. They create channels that direct water away from the pads of your fingers, letting more of your actual skin make direct contact with whatever wet surface you are touching. Researchers tested this idea directly. In one well-known experiment, people were asked to pick up small, water-covered objects, marbles submerged at the bottom of a container of water, using either fingers that had already wrinkled from a long soak or fingers that were dry and unwrinkled, and their speed was timed. The wrinkled fingers handled the wet, slippery objects noticeably faster than the smooth, dry fingers did. But when the same test was repeated using dry objects instead, wrinkled and unwrinkled fingers performed about the same, with no real advantage either way. In other words, the wrinkles were not a general upgrade to your grip. They were a highly specific adaptation that only helps when things are wet, exactly like a tire tread that matters enormously on a rainy road and gives you nothing extra on dry pavement. Step back for a moment and think about what this suggests about your ancestors. If wrinkly fingers genuinely improve grip on wet, slippery surfaces, that would have mattered enormously to early humans wading through streams to catch fish, foraging for shellfish and edible plants along wet riverbanks, gathering food in the rain, or simply trying not to drop a sharp stone tool while their hands were soaked. A response that takes a few minutes to switch on fits neatly into that story, because it means your body is not wasting energy wrinkling your fingers for a quick splash at the sink. It only commits to the adaptation once your hands have been wet long enough that you are probably doing something sustained in the water, like foraging, fishing, or wading, rather than just rinsing them off for a few seconds. And this same mechanism is not limited to your fingers. Your toes do exactly the same thing, following the identical nervous system pathway, which lines up with the idea that this evolved as a broader wet terrain grip adaptation, rather than something built specifically for hand dexterity alone. Meanwhile, the diagnostic side of this discovery has become genuinely useful in modern medicine. Doctors now use a simple water immersion test as a quick, non-invasive way to screen for certain types of peripheral nerve damage or dysfunction in the autonomic nervous system, because if the wrinkling response is missing, delayed, or uneven, it can point toward a nerve problem that is worth investigating further with more detailed testing. There is also something quietly remarkable about the precision of the whole system. Your body did not evolve one generic wrinkle pattern shared by everyone. It built a response tied to your own unique map of blood vessels, so the exact grooves that appear on your fingertips are, in their own way, as personal to you as the ridges of your fingerprint. Two people soaking their hands in the same warm bath for the same 5 minutes will end up with visibly different wrinkle patterns, shaped by nerve pathways that were laid down before either of them could even remember forming them. So the next time you climb out of a bath, step out of a long shower, or spend an afternoon swimming and glance down at your pruny fingertips, you are not looking at damaged, waterlogged skin. You are looking at a live, active response from your own nervous system. The same wiring that controls your heartbeat and your instinct to freeze or run, quietly deciding in real time that your hands need better traction. Your body built a tire tread into your fingertips millions of years before anyone ever built an actual tire, and it still switches that ancient system on today. Every single time your hands sit in water for more than a few minutes, without you ever having to think about it at all.